Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Bitter Rivals podcast. What episode is this, Gitano?
This is episode 127.
Powered by 91N. I am your host, Avery Roche, along with co-host Gitano Gallo. We haven't done an episode in a while. There's been a little bit going on in both of our lives. Gitano bought a house. As you can see, the stuff has changed. If you watch full time, then I'm sure you would already know that. But yeah, there's been a lot going on. So we are back to do a little bit of a season wrap-up episode, even though we're basically mid-July here. We're 2 weeks into free agency. The draft happened in Vegas. The Stanley Cup was won by the Florida Panthers. You don't believe you've seen us since the first round, because that was the last time either the Leafs or Habs was in a playoff round. So not much on this show to talk about after those teams get eliminated. And the Habs were never there, and the Leafs were eliminated quite early. So
where do we want to start, Avery? Want to start the Stanley Cup Final?
Yeah, let's start there, sure.
All right. So the Florida Panthers won the East. The Edmonton Oilers won the West. So both of our brackets were broken there. Honestly, a hell of a Stanley Cup Final. Like, gonna be honest, like one of the better ones in the last couple of years. I didn't really expect that going into it.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, the first three games, like after the first three games, I had no interest in. I just figured it was over, right? And then the Oilers were able to make it interesting, and that I think got everybody's attention. Coming back from down 3-0 to tie it at 3 and force a Game 7, of course people are going to be interested after that. It looked at first like it was going to be an awful Stanley Cup Final, and then we had a 7-game thriller.
Yeah, especially the way Florida played in those first three games. Not that they dismantled the Oilers or absolutely floored them. So it was 3-0, 4-1, and 4-3. But it was like, it seemed like it was going to be a very convincing 4-game sweep at that point. The Oilers fired back with an 8-1 win in Game 4. It's something that kind of nobody saw coming. But even then, it was still like, okay, like they got their one in. Like, Florida just need to win one more. It was going back to Florida. The Oilers pull off a 5-3 win in Florida, bring it back to Edmonton, where they win convincingly again, 5-1. And then Game 7 in Florida, a super, super tight game. Basically, the only game of the series, not that the other games weren't competitive, but that was the only game that really didn't feel like it was, you knew who the winner was after like 20, 30 minutes. Like, it was down to the wire. Probably one of the better games of the entire playoffs, I would say. And the Florida Panthers come away with a 2-1 win and their first Stanley Cup.
Yeah, first Stanley Cup in their 30-year franchise history, and lots of Canadians on that team. Sault Ste. Marie, legend. Paul Maurice, head coach. Yeah, I kind of hate the thought that every and if you do this, then that's fine too. But I don't think every Canadian was supporting the Edmonton Oilers, and I feel like that's kind of how the media wants you to do it. Like, Sportsnet wants you to watch their broadcast, so they're going to try to get you behind the Oilers any way that they can, right? And a lot of that is, oh well, a Canadian team hasn't won the Stanley Cup since the Canadians in 93.
Yeah.
So, like, I just hate that sentiment. I hate that sentiment that, like, I should have been cheering for the Oilers so that Canada could have a cup. No, I want the first cup back in Canada to be the Leafs, and you want the first cup back in Canada to be the Habs, right? Like, that's...
Yeah, and not only that, but I also want the last Canadian Cup to be the Habs until the Habs win it again. Like, I don't want anyone else to win the cup. And yeah, the play on the national pride, just, it doesn't particularly work in this case. Like, you don't see like ESPN in the States going, oh, like, Florida, the only American team left, everyone's got to cheer for them. Like, it doesn't work.
Well, no, but that's I don't think that's the same thing, because an American team has won the Stanley Cup every single one of the last 31 years. So yeah. It doesn't matter.
No, but like, just right? Just trying to just like mobilize like a national fan base based on like, oh, like they're the only team left from your country, you have to cheer for them. Like, I don't buy into it at all. I think if we're going to be totally honest, once the Habs are eliminated from the playoffs, whether it's in the regular season mathematically or in a playoff series, like, I don't particularly care who wins the Stanley Cup at that point. It's like, at that point, it's, if there's players who I like personally that are left, like, I would like to see those players win. So, like, in the last couple of years, seeing like Arturi Lehkonen win one in Colorado, seeing Mike Amadio win one in Vegas, like, that's the kind of storyline I, prefer over, just, oh, they're a Canadian team, I guess I have to cheer for them.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what you have to do, right? You have to find storylines in the playoffs because the Habs are a shit team in an unbelievable division. So that's all you can really do at this point.
Well, but even for you,
it's just
I've been very open about the fact that the Habs are. This is a great time for the Habs to be shit, considering the division. But like, even for you, like, once the Leafs go out, like, if you want to invest yourself in the playoffs, you're not going, oh, like, who are the Canadian teams left? You're going, oh, like, is there an ex-Leaf? Is there a Sioux boy? Is there, just a player I like that I want to win a Stanley Cup? Like, there's no.
Yeah,
Like, that's all you can do.
For me, in this, like, I didn't really care who won the cup between Edmonton or Florida. I think what it was for me was once the Oilers won those 3 games, I didn't give a shit about them being a Canadian team and winning the cup. What I did care about, though, and what I wanted to see was McDavid get his cup. Because you don't know how many times you're going to get back to the dance, to the Stanley Cup final. And that was his chance to never be left out of the greatest of all time conversation. Because I think we can agree, we've talked about this at length, he is a freak of nature, probably the most talented hockey player in terms of sheer skill that I've ever seen personally. Like,
I would say that we will ever see. I'm gonna throw that out there.
And I think that he, regardless of what he does, because hockey is a team sport, and one player can't win an entire series or entire playoff, like Stanley Cup, go on an entire run by themselves, right? I wanted him to have his cup so that he never gets left out of those conversations of the best of all time, right? Like, that's...
Yeah. I would feel horrible having the conversations, or having him in the conversation with, like, the Joe Thorntons and the Carey Prices and the greatest to never win a cup. Like, I don't want Connor McDavid to be in that conversation. That to me just feels wrong.
Exactly.
Or sorry, like, it would feel wrong. He still has plenty of time to win one.
He does, but that's the thing, right? Is especially how, like, with the salary cap, there's a lot of parity in the league. It's not all of these teams, like all 32 teams are good hockey teams, right? Maybe not great, some of them. Maybe not great, some of them. But from top to bottom, when you compare it to other sports, right? I think the NHL is very fair, specifically to lower market teams, to give them an opportunity to be just as good as the higher market teams, right? Through the salary cap, through location of some of these places, right? Like, Florida has always been considered a small market team. They have no problem getting free agents because there's no state income tax. And
who doesn't
want to live in Florida
10 months a year?
Who doesn't want to live in Florida? Like, seriously, it's a beautiful place. It just is. But like, they have like housing that they all stay in, and it's literally, they all have their own golf carts, and they just rip to their freaking practice every morning in flip-flops, go to the beach, and then play a game that night. And like, they can go to the mall in Sunrise, and most people have no idea who they are. Like, that's the dream for a lot of these guys, right? And that's the thing about the NHL. And that's what makes it hard to see a guy like McDavid get a chance and not pull through on it, right? Because you just don't know if he's going to get back there. You just don't know. What happens with Leon Draisaitl, right? Can they afford to keep both of them and still build a team? Because I think it's pretty consensus. Those are two of, like, number one for sure, best player in the league, and definitely top 5 with Draisaitl.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
You could make the case for top 3. You can make a case for it. I'm not going to agree with it, but you could make a case for it.
You could, exactly. I agree with you on that too. You could make the case for top 3. Regardless, can you pay him? Can you pay him? Can you pay Bouchard? You already have Nurse on the books for $9 million. Like, what's going to happen there? right? Hyman's got a pretty. What does he make? 5.5, 5.25, 7
Somewhere
years.
in that ballpark.
I think it's somewhere around there. What's Nuge's contract look like? Like, I just don't know what they're
Hyman's
going
on
to do.
5.5, Kane's on 5.125, Nuge is on 5.125.
They got some hefty price tags, man.
I mean, Ekholm's on 6, but he's one of their best defensemen, so I don't have an issue with that deal at all.
No, Bouchard's still on a ZLC, right?
I don't know. No, not ELC, but he definitely signed a break. So he's on 3.9 for the year, and he's on RFA next year. So,
okay, yeah. So okay, I thought he
so
was.
So next year he's making a bag.
Yes, he's going to, absolutely. And yeah, I worry about their ability to keep that team together around McDavid and his ability to get back. That's all. That's all I have to say about that Stanley Cup final. That was the disappointment for me in them losing that game 7. Not that a Canadian team lost. I don't give a shit. Right? Anyway.
And the one thing I will say for Paul Maurice, that post game interview on the ice was one of that's an all timer.
Phenomenal.
I got goosebumps thinking about now what he said, when he was shouting out his parents, and he's like, hey, you're like the cup or our names on the cup, with your idols like Lafleur, Richard, I forget what other ones said, but then he's like, and Maurice. And I'm like, that hits. That was really, really, really fucking good. And
he shouted out the Sioux.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's always been very prickly with the media, and I think he's a fantastic coach. Prickly in the media, which is kind of off-putting for me sometimes, but that I thought he fucking nailed it. So shout out Paul Maurice. Can't wait to see him in the Sioux with the cup at some point this summer.
Yeah, the Sioux always finds its way, or the cup always finds its way back to Sault Ste. Marie somehow, always some does. Way, all the time. I don't know how that happens. Every freaking year, there's some connection, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a few days after the Stanley Cup final, which is wild to say, the NHL draft happened in the Sphere in Vegas.
Poor planning. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that could be a whole episode of how awful the NHL has been scheduled the last couple of years. But anyways, the Celebrini draft was in Vegas. He obviously went number 1 overall to the San Jose Sharks. They're building something scary out in San Jose again. I think it's still going to be. There's still a few years out from it being truly scary, but it's when that team kind of gets together, that's going to be a fucking I think back to the fucking Jumbo, Heatley, and Marlowe era of the Sharks, where they just terrorized the NHL. They could get back up there. So that's, great, because we only play them fucking twice a year, but that's gonna be fun. Chicago with the 2nd pick took the defenseman, the Russian defenseman Levshinov. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I don't particularly hate this pick. Specifically, you have Bedard up front. I think they maybe should have got him a little bit of help, maybe a Caden Lindstrom and Ivan Demidov, but also securing a top end, elite defenseman to kind of balance things out is probably a better team building strategy, I would say.
Yeah, I do see wanting to strengthen all areas of the team though. And I don't know much about Levshunov, but I don't is this guy somebody that could be a number 1? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I can see that strategy.
Yeah, he was definitely the number 1 defenseman in this draft going into it, projected. Again, what his actual ceiling is, I don't know. Played at Michigan State, so we actually probably should have seen a little bit, or we could have seen a little bit of him if we probably looked a little harder.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like the idea of kind of building an even roster instead of just front loading and then, basically doing what the Oilers have done, which is get as many good forwards in as you can and then having to rebuild your defense and goaltending on the fly. So I actually don't hate this pick. The Ducks went absolutely not off the board, but they went a little off the board with Beckett's Seneca or
Seneke, something. Yeah. He had no idea. Like, he was shook when he got drafted. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, like very blatantly on live TV, looked at his parents and said, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
I think you've seen the shirt that they put out with his face on it, with the duck. Fantastic stuff. Yeah, like I said, he's probably still going to go top 10, so he's not like totally off the board, but definitely jumped the gun a little bit on him. Columbus, I love this pick for them. Caden Lindstrom, he was one of the two guys that I really wanted the Habs to have. Fucking huge centerman, like big body, skill, good skater. Dominated the WHL this past year. He is going to be an issue. Columbus is a dog shit team, so I'm not too worried about that. I think not that he's going to turn them around, but if they kind of get their shit together at some point, he's going to be a fucking issue. And then that left the Canadians at the number 5 pick to draft Ivan Demidov, who was arguably the second best player in this draft. As a Habs fan, I've never seen a player that we've drafted had like Jay Fresh comps of like Crosby, Kane, McDavid, Bedard. So that was really fun. I'm super excited about this kid. I think he's, as much as I love Cole and Nick and Uri, I think this kid is like going to be the guy, like the superstar in this team. If he reaches his kind of ceiling, he's going to be, easily 100-point plus a season player. He just looks cracked, Dave. Like, I'm so excited to see this kid play.
Well, that's exciting. You guys, the Habs there's a bunch of young players that obviously have strong ceilings. It's just seeing them get there now, right? Like,
yeah,
it's hard to project a guy to have comps of Crosby, Bedard, McDavid, who went 5th overall, and I get it. Like, I get it it's the type of player he is. Not that he's going to be that good, but it's the type of player that he is. Yeah. I think is what those comps are more referencing. And yeah, that's you don't have that guy in your system. So I see what you're saying in terms of, like, you have the goal scorer in Caulfield, you have the two-way guy in Suzuki, right? I have no idea what Slafkovsky is, to be honest with you. Power forward, I guess you could say. Yeah. And then to add a guy with skill, but also like star power, I think is something that the Habs need in order to get to that next level.
Yeah, I'm just going to pull up something quick because the Habs have not had a 100-point goal scorer since, I want to say, the last Hab to score 100 points in a season was Mats Naslund in 85-86.
That's like a long time.
Like, that's such a. The Habs have only had one point a game player, or the only point a game player that Carey Price played with his entire Habs career was Alex Kovalev in his rookie year. Price's rookie year, not Kovalev's, obviously. But you look at what Demidov has done in the KHL, done it for the Russian junior program, and kind of what he's not expected, but like projected to do. And this is the first time I've looked at, a Habs draft and like, oh, like, that's going to be the next 100-point guy. Like, if anyone out of the current crop is going to do it, like, it is going to be him. He looks like he is that good. He just is, like you said, he just has that superstar like aura around him. He's got a couple more years in Russia, in St. Petersburg, before he can come to North America, which is fine with me. Not that I don't want him to play Montreal right away, but his development needs to be a priority. And if he's going to develop better over there, I'm totally okay with that. And the Habs don't particularly need him, in North America right now. But when he gets here, Ave, like, this kid's going to be something else.
Well, I hope that for you guys, because like I said, it's a tough division. So
yeah,
you're going to need that kind of guy. 6 was Tijginla, if that name is familiar. It's because it's Jerome's son, and he really, correct me if I'm wrong, but he really climbed the draft rankings over this past season. Like, he was not projected to be top 10, I don't believe, at the beginning of the season, like Mackenzie's rankings.
Yeah,
Am I
no,
wrong?
I think he was probably like a late first, early second, like to start the year, but just had a monster year in the
Yeah,
WHL.
yeah. So he played his way into the 6th overall pick to Utah, which is the new incarnation of the Arizona Coyotes. Which, just quick on that, just because we're talking about the Utah pick right now, it's dead in the water. They are not getting the NHL promised them the rights to start, even if it's an expansion team, another team in Arizona, and that is done now. Let's be very clear. That is done now. They are not moving forward with that. They lost the piece of land that they were trying to build that building on. It's done. The Arizona Coyotes are done. It'll never happen again. It's over. I just wanted to say, because thank
Thank
God.
God.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Rest in piss, the Arizona Coyotes.
That's hilarious. They're
Oh,
hilarious. What a poverty ownership group, man. Anyway.
and that's it. And we're not shitting on like the franchise, the fan base, the players, anything like that. It's literally like the ownership group was just like the worst of the worst. So
It
fuck them.
just worst
Alex
run in
Marullo.
all, not just North American, possibly worst run in sports. Just,
Yeah, like this is like this is like an all timer poor ownership group. Like
yeah,
no doubt about it.
yeah. No, yeah. That guy should be ashamed. Anyway, Alex Marullo, if you don't know, should be ashamed. Anyway, that's enough about them. That is the last time you will hear about them on this show ever. Thank you.
Until he like tries some stupid shit, get the Yotes back in a couple of years, then we can laugh at him. But
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's round out the top 10 here. So
yeah.
the second defenseman off the board to the Ottawa Senators, Carter Yakimchuk. Big guy, 6'3", 202, played for Calgary in the dub. Big defenseman. What do you know? High pick. Surprise, surprise.
I mean, not that I want to skip 8, but like I'm surprised that he went before Zane Perrick from Saginaw, because that guy was fucking unbelievable. Had one of the best. Like could have easily been like OHL MVP this year. So I was
Yeah,
surprised to see him like drop to 9.
yeah, we saw him when we
Yeah,
went to
yeah,
go
no, he was
in the playoffs,
disgusting.
and he was a force. And now he is a Calgary Flame. I'm sure the Flames were hoping that Tidge Ginla would drop to them. He didn't, obviously. But Zane Perrick is a hell of a consolation prize.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
we hop back to. Oh, sorry. Continue.
no, go ahead.
Honestly, so we're gonna hop back to number 8. Berkeley Catton going to Seattle. Love that pick for them. Again, he was a guy that. So there's a lot of speculation because honestly, Celebrini was going to go 1, and anything kind of past that was really like there was no
Hard to predict.
no. Yeah, it was super hard to predict. Nobody had any idea. He was a guy that if Demidov had been taken, the Habs are rumored to be really in on. So I was kind of shocked to see him fall to 8, but I think he's going to be a great pickup for Seattle.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't know much about him. I'm going to be honest with you. This is these drafts are not my strong suit. This is not. I don't watch enough junior hockey, college hockey, pay enough attention to the overseas kids. I just don't. I know the big names that I hear on TSN and Sportsnet, and that's really what it comes down to. I don't know much about Berkeley Catton. I did know more about Zane Perrick because we saw him play.
We saw him a few times, yeah.
A little closer to home in the OHL as well, right? I just know more about him. Yeah, so good for the Seattle Kraken picking up what I assume they hope to be their second line center behind Matty Beniers.
Yeah.
Hopefully it works out for them. That's about all I can add to this conversation.
Where do you think Shane Wright fits in there?
I think Shane Wright is a lost cause at this point.
Interesting.
And number 10 to the New Jersey Devils, who had a bunch of injury issues this year. New coach, obviously, in Sheldon Keefe with Berube. That's something that we just talked about.
Yes, let's finish with this and then do that. Let's finish with this and then do that.
Yeah, so New Jersey, picking up another monster defenseman. Oh my God, this man is 6'7". I just saw that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow, 6'7", 211, big Russian D-man. Again, big defenseman. top 10 pick. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. And there's one more pick I just want to skip to number 31, the Toronto Maple Leafs, grabbing Ben Danford from Oshawa. Any thoughts?
No, another big defenseman. Like, to be honest with you, I believe they traded down for that. I forget. I remember watching the draft and waiting for the Leafs to pick, and I was sitting there waiting. I had to go somewhere, and I was like, "Okay, can you make the pick?" And they just took forever, and then they're like, "We're trading it," and it's like, I'm like, so yeah, Ben Danford, big guy, defenseman, Oshawa, OHL. Probably should know more about him, but yeah,
We'll keep an eye on him this year. Keep an eye on him this year, and just from a organization standpoint, we don't have many defensemen, specifically bigger defensemen in the pipeline. Like the defensemen that we do have in our prospect pool, they're mostly made out of small European puck movers, right? Roni Hirvonen, so it's nice to get a thug in there.
It's nice to get a big boy in there, right? Big Canadian guy. Love to see it. That's my contribution to that one.
Lovely. So yeah, coaching in Toronto.
So
I feel like we talked about Keefe going, but I don't feel like we talked about his replacement.
Yeah, so his replacement, and you probably could have guessed this when they fired Keefe, was Craig Berube. He's the opposite kind of coach to Keefe. Like, I think he's not Babcock in terms of being like a manager's coach, but he's definitely not going to kiss anybody's ass like Keefe did, right? And I think at this stage in our core player's career, that's probably what they need. They don't need somebody who's going to tell them it's okay. They need somebody to tell them to do fucking better. And that's exactly what Craig Berube will do, right? He's just a different voice, a different type of energy and message from your coach, and I think it's good for the team at this point in time. I'm not saying that it's going to change their fortunes completely. Now they're just going to go win playoff rounds. Like, that's not how it works. You don't just change your coach and it's done. But at the same time, he is going to have a positive impact on the psyche of this team. I think it's going to be interesting to see him mesh with a guy like Mitch Marner, right, who is used to having his ass kissed and has for 8 years. So I'm interested to see that dynamic. I don't think Matthews is just going to go do his thing. I'm interested to see the Nylander dynamic. I'm interested to see the Tavares dynamic. I like the signing in net too with Stolars. That's a big one. Stolars and Wohl are the 1 and 2. Stolars has been great for a few years now. He's just behind Bobrovsky, so it's kind of hard to shine when you're behind Bobrovsky, and we saw how good he was.
Stanley Cup champion, Sergei Bobrovsky.
Exactly. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting year in Toronto. It's just hard to get excited about like October and the start of the regular season, because it's just, who cares until April, Yeah. As we've talked about at length, it's especially in Toronto after years and years of just repeated failure. It's hard to get excited about the regular season, but it is going to be an interesting dynamic with the new coach in, for sure.
All right, I think that just about covers everything. Is there anything that you think we've missed from the last 8 weeks?
I would like to shout out CapFriendly.
Yeah, pour one out for CapFriendly, man.
Yeah, the Washington Capitals takeover of CapFriendly happened last week, I believe. And yeah, there are going to be imitators for sure, but they will never be the same as you, CapFriendly. Yeah, they will never be the same as you, CapFriendly. And thank you to the team at CapFriendly for all you did for hockey fans. It was the greatest source of information in the NHL. It just was.
Man, they had the expansion draft simulator. They had it was fun. It was unfucking real, the effort that they put into that. Considering what it started as just a database and kind of became, a tool for everyone to use. I'm gonna just quickly shit on the league for not wanting this type of information out there and trying to keep that quiet. Like, it's just like, it's like the contracts, it's like the money is like an essential part of the conversation around the league now, especially with the salary cap. Like, you can't, even for like a lower level fan, like, to understand how and why a team is making decisions, like, you have to know the money. Like, it just, and that's why like something like CapFriendly was so clutch, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know everything about the salary cap and all the rules, but like, it was so nice when a team made a decision to like look at CapFriendly, like, oh, like, I think I at least get like some sort of picture of why it's going on, instead of just like blindly trusting fucking Mark
Well,
Bergevin.
and I think what's important to remember is this wasn't just a resource for fans. Like, this was a resource for the media. This was a resource for general managers around the league, right? Like, they used it. Like, they definitely.
Like, there's a reason why the Washington Capitals like bought it. Like, it's
so that
not...
other teams couldn't use it. That is exactly why they bought it.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, it wasn't just like they bought it for funsies. Like, the fucking owner was like, yeah, you know what? I've got a spare like a couple million laying around. I can like buy. Like, it's a massive tool. I think it's a. I don't hate the Capitals for buying it. I think it's a really smart business decision. I think it's a really smart hockey decision. It just gets kind of sucks being on like the other end of it, where you have this awesome tool kind of taken away from you. But hopefully the imitators and replicators will come up with something, and we'll kind of have a replacement for CapFriendly. But we'll always hold CapFriendly in our hearts. It was really weird pulling up all my tabs. I have a saved set of tabs for recording Bitter Rivals podcast. CapFriendly is one of them, and it like came up and it just didn't exist anymore. That was a little
So pour one out. Thank you to the team at CapFriendly for doing everything that you did. So that's I think all I wanted to talk about. Did you want to get into some free agency a little bit?
I think we can do a couple of the big free agent signings. I think obviously the biggest one is Steven Stamkos.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Especially, so he got a 4x8 in Nashville.
He did, I think.
I want to say it's 4x8. But they had the discussions with him and Tampa had been going on all year. They really tried to, give him the short end of the stick. Whether I think their attempt was basically more less money longer term, whereas he obviously wanted like more money and shorter term. So he signs that 4x8. Yeah, 4x8 in Nashville. They are gross. They also signed a 5x5.5 with Jonathan Marchessault. So they are absolutely sending it next year.
I love that energy. I love that.
I really do. Brady Shea on the back end too, a 7x7. Like, do I think that in 4 or 5 years this team's going to be still very good and they're going to have like probably not? But for probably the first couple of years of this, they are going to be a serious problem. But anyways, just with Stamkos there, it was weird to see him not get that 4.8 from the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then a few days later, the next day, I should say, Victor Hedman gets a 4x8. And obviously it's different.
A slap in the face, man.
And it is slightly different for a defenseman and a forward. Defensemen typically kind of age better, get kind of a little more length out of their career. But yeah, that's got to be like a slap in the face to, and again, it's just because and Victor Hedman's someone he has, played and grown up with, for his entire career now in Tampa. To see him get that deal when you, the captain of the team, 40-goal scorer last season, don't get that deal, like that's
it's a slap in the face. There's no other way.
That's poor business from the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yes.
Like I think in like business wise, and I also think like in actual like hockey terms, like the one thing that Montreal's been really good about is like it's like in the Hughes and Gorton era is like making sure players are leaving on good terms. Like the one I remember specifically was Andrew Hammond, we could have just like buried him in the minors because we were having a goalie crisis. But anyways, we got an offer for him to go to New Jersey. And so we shipped him off to New Jersey. So we keep playing the NHL. Well, we could have just said no and just buried him in the minors. Like making sure guys are like being taken care of on the way out. I think that's going to leave a bad taste in a lot of players' mouth. The way Tampa treated their captain and one of their greatest ever players. But yeah, that was probably the two biggest signings, or the biggest free agent signing, and probably the biggest renewal, I would say, of free agency. Both came out of Tampa.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Leafs here. So the Leafs signed a 34-year-old Chris Tanev to a 6-year, $27 million contract that carries an AAV of $4.5 million. So I get it. Because we need strong top four defensemen. Like, that's just, we do, right? Like, yeah. There's no getting around that if we want to compete. And this is one of those contracts where you're like, obviously, you know that this man is not going to be probably still playing in the league when he is 40, which is the last year of his contract. Like, come on. We know that.
You're going to get probably 2.5, 3 years of this, and then the rest is going to be spent on Robida Island.
Exactly. And I think that's like understood, right? I truly believe that is understood. Like, all parties involved know that. Here's the thing. You were getting $27 million. For our cap situation, we need to put it over 6 years. I know that takes until you're 40, but you're not playing until you're 40, but we have to do it that way or else we can't sign you. I think is kind of the situation there. Other notable signings in Toronto, Max Domi re-signed. So happy to see him extend his time as a Leaf. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, this is an interesting one, right? Because he was one of the better defensemen in the league early in his career in Arizona.
Yeah.
Struggled the last few years in Arizona, went up to Vancouver, struggled there, but then signs a deal in Florida and kind of looked like he did earlier in his career and just won a Stanley Cup, right? So you don't know what you're going to get out of him. You can only hope that looks a little bit more like he did last year than the few years prior to that. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
I think it's an easily movable contract if it kind of goes bad. Like, it's not.
I'm getting Klingberg vibes.
Like a little bit. I feel better about this than I did about Klingberg, for sure.
Yeah, because he was actually good last year. Klingberg came to the Leafs as the reclamation project. He already had his reclamation project in Florida, OEL, right?
Yeah. He had his reclamation year last year. He's not entirely damaged goods now. He's like slightly like packaging's a little messed up, but the goods aren't, I don't think, damaged.
No. Also out of Dallas, Yanni Hakanpää, $3 million 2-year deal, so 1.5 AAV. Third pairing guy, big guy, great. And Stolarz is unproven, yes, but that's because he hasn't really gotten the opportunity. Anytime he's been in the net, he's put up stellar numbers. Like, look at Stolarz' numbers over the past few years. I know it's smaller sample size than you'd like to see, but he's been very good. Very, very good. And he's better than Ilya Samsonov. Like, that I can confidently say.
Yeah.
And that's really all that matters.
I'll say that's a little bit of a tough one. Again, it's sample size. Like, you just don't. We've seen so much of Samsonov, which obviously isn't the greatest thing in Toronto, just with the injury record in their goalkeepers, kind of overexposing him, versus Stolarz not getting a lot of exposure. But yeah, it's I think it's a good signing. We'll see whether it becomes a great signing.
Fair enough. Anyway, that's about all I wanted to talk about in terms of the Leafs. We got to the coach. We got to the free agency signings. Not much to talk about with Mitch Marner, which I think everybody wants to hear about, but like, we have no idea what's going on there. Like, we don't know if he wants to be a Leaf. We don't know if they want to trade him. We don't know if they've asked him to just like waive his no trade. He literally would not let media at his charity event earlier this week. He, like, TSN and Sportsnet are generally all over that, and he was like, "We're gonna ask you not to come this year."
Yeah,
so
I mean, I don't hate that from him, because it's like you know exactly the questions you're gonna ask. If you don't want to answer those questions, then like, what's the point of wasting everyone's time and having the media there?
Yeah. So he sent a strong message with that, though. I don't think Leaf fans loved it. I didn't.
I don't think Leafs fans, not that you don't deserve to know, but again, it's there's so many pieces, there's so many puzzle pieces for this, whether they want him, whether he wants to stay, whether he wants to waive his no move, even if he waives his no move, our team's, interested in putting a package together for him, are the teams that put packages together where he wants to go. It's a whole, there's so many layers to it that I don't, not that you guys shouldn't care, but at this point, with none of the puzzle pieces anywhere near kind of each other, there's almost like no point in caring until something kind of starts to go a little bit.
Yeah, and it's I'm just interested to see where this goes. That's all.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I have, and we have a Euro final to watch, Mr. Gallo.
Yes, we do. Just shout out to all our listeners for kind of dealing with this kind of 2-month absence. Probably not going to be a ton of regular content for the next 2-ish months. Probably September, late September, we'll start to fire it back up unless something major happens. If Mitch Marner gets shipped to Utah,
yeah,
we might have to come on and talk about it. But outside of that, I think we won't be talking to you for a while. But as always, if you do want to get our opinions on stuff, want to connect with us, the socials will all be in the link. Hit us up on Twitter, on Instagram, YouTube comments. If you know us personally, just like DM us. But Avery, it was a pleasure being back on the show with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Always love cracking out an hour of hockey talk, or a little less than an hour, but you know what I'm saying. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bitter Rivals podcast powered by 91N. We will talk to you if something crazy happens or come the new season.